In a world where it's completely quotidian for naked motorcycles to have 200 plus horsepower, the Honda CB1000R Black Edition is a bit of a black sheep, no pun intended. This thing only makes 143 horsepower, and it's kind of Japan's answer to all the crazy things that are coming out of Europe lately. Super Duke 1290s, Street Fighter V4Ss, Tuono factory V4s. This thing's way more sedate. And it only costs $12,999. And today, we're going to do a comprehensive review on the Honda CB1000R Black Edition to find out, does this thing make any sense in the hyper-naked world? And is it really the underrated gem of a motorcycle that I keep hearing about? Let's find out. So let's go over a quick history lesson on the CB1000R. Back in 2008, Honda came out with their CB1000R motorcycle based on the CBR1000RR race bike. That bike ran pretty much unchanged for like 10 years, and I think in 2018, Honda came out with the revised platform for the CB1000R, and then for this one in 2021, they came out with the Black Edition, which has a couple more updates. They changed the wheels, which look really trick, by the way. These are some really nice wheels. I love the single-sided look on the CB1000R here. But this is now it's funny, they call it the Black Edition, but this is the only edition you can buy of this motorcycle. But the engine here is the same 08 to 2016 CBR1000RR engine. It's massively detuned though. It's way more street biased. It's not some hopped up race bike engine. It's about 143 horsepower and 76 foot-pounds of torque. I think max RPM is about 11,000 on this thing, so it's not a screamer of an engine. Wet weight is 467 pounds on this motorcycle, so a little bit more on the portly side. I would have liked to have seen something a little bit in the 410 to 415 range, but I've heard this thing carries its weight very well, and we're going to find out on the ride today. 32.7-inch seat height, and as I swing a leg over this machine to check the ergonomics, I actually really like it. I fit very well on this motorcycle. I find that I fit very well on a lot of Japanese bikes, but this one in particular, I really like the feel of. I'm not super upright like an XSR 900 or an MT-09, that hyper motard kind of feel, and I'm not super in the pocket like a Street Fighter V4S. I'm a little bit more relaxed, which is nice. So for 2021, Honda gave this thing a 5-inch TFT display, which will turn on here. A nice update on this machine. You can now see a little bit nicer graphics and all that stuff. A couple different rider modes on here. You have standard, sport, rain, and user mode. You can dial in engine braking, traction control, and some of the power levels too. That's standard across Honda's range. You can see that all the way from the Rebel 1100 all the way to the Fireblade, that same system. Up front as well, the suspension is handled by a Showa big piston single function fork. So one side has preload and the other side has rebound and compression, kind of a different setup for Showa there. Manually adjustable, no electronic suspension found on here. And the rear is a rear shock that has rebound and preload adjustability only. I think this motorcycle, despite its heavy-ish weight, 467 pounds, you know, side to side here, I'm about 165 pounds, 5'11". I feel very confident with this machine. I don't feel like it's that heavy. The distribution of weight seems to be in all the right places. So with all that being said, let's get it out in front of the shop. Let's get a sound check on this stock exhaust, and then let's swing a leg and go take it for a spin. All right, let's get a sound clip of the CB1000R. It's a cold start, so we're just going to give it a few revs. That's pretty zesty, honestly, for a stock exhaust. Sounds pretty cool. Let's go take it out on the road.
I can be pretty busy sometimes with filming videos for the channel, racing motorcycles on the track, and traveling for press events, and that's why I'm super stoked to be working with AG1. AG1 is the easiest way I've found to get all the essential vitamins, minerals, and probiotics I need throughout the day in one convenient drink. AG1 takes less than a minute to make. It's been so incredibly easy to integrate with my daily routine. Whether you're chasing tents on the track or trying to earn an S rank on your Street Squid speed run, you know how taxing riding a motorcycle can be both on your body and your mind. AG1 has helped me stay energized and focused while both riding and presiding over the Gaming Noob universe thanks to its nutrients and adaptogens specifically formulated to support recovery and stress management. If you use the link down below, you'll be able to receive 1 year's supply of immune-supporting vitamin D3K2 and 5 travel packs for free with your first purchase. So hit that link down below and check them out. Thanks so much to AG1 for supporting today's video. Now let's get back into it. All right, folks, swinging a leg over the Honda CB1000R. Let's start it up for you guys. I think this bike has a lot of look back factor. I think it looks really great. We did a Honda CB650R back in 2019 as a giveaway bike. This is kind of that bike's bigger brother, and it looks cool. Like, I love this little touch right here. The look out from here looks really nice. This is a really sharp looking little motorcycle, man. I'm riding around a little bit today already, so it's not a completely raw impression. I had to dial in quite a few things. I'm already finding out some things. I wanted to see in this cryptic setting here if I can change the display actually. Display type, that's what I want to change. Type 1, Type 2, Type 3, Type 4. So that's a bit of a bummer. Because one thing I wanted to change on this bike already was the fact that so much real estate on the screen is taken up by this user mode and everything else here. I don't need to see this all the time. I wish this was small right here and it just said user. Like, why is it telling me CB1000R right here? I know what bike I'm on. It should just say the user mode here and give me more real estate on the screen. A bit of an annoying thing already on the bike, but overall I'm really enjoying it. Taking off here, the clutch pull is really nice and smooth. I mean, all the control inputs, it's exactly what you've come to expect from a Honda. You know, if you've ridden a Honda, you know how they feel. They feel really, really good. Let's take off here, give her the beans a little bit. It's so funny that we've gotten to the point where 143 horsepower claimed, we all look at it and we're like, it's slow. It's not slow, guys. This bike feels awesome. It's got a great amount of power, a usable amount of power, really nice quantity of power, you know? It's not a lot of food, but it's good food, you know? One thing I've already noticed on the power band of this bike specifically, which is really unique, is the fact that it seems to have a nice kink to it. It makes it a little bit more exciting for street duty. It seems like below 6,000 RPM, it's very docile. You know, I'll go ahead and click it up into 5th gear here. If I just whack the throttle in 5th, I've got it on full power mode, I've set it up into user mode here. It's very docile, but then get it down into 2nd. Yeah, it's pokey, like properly pokey. It's so interesting. Under 6,000 RPM, it's like very smooth and docile, and then above 6, it's like wham! It gives you a ton of power. I honestly, if this were my bike, I would try to flash that out with an ECU, but seeing as it's a totally stock motorcycle, you know, kind of a cool experience. I would run it like this maybe for a year, and then I'd maybe flash it and just try to smooth that all out. I'm sure somebody's already figured out how to do that. One point I want to make is the quick shifter is sublime, 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 sublime. I've always really liked Honda's gearboxes, and this quick shifter is, I believe, the same system they use on the Fireblade, because you can actually go in and dial how aggressive you want the quick shifter setting to be, which is like, you don't really see that often on motorcycles. That's pretty unique, and I actually really like it. I've got it on the hardest setting possible, and I love the way this thing feels. I can just flip up through the gearbox. You can hit down as quick as you want. There's no delay, there's no lag at all. It doesn't interrupt the system. Between 1st and 2nd, it's buttery smooth. You don't have to be like really heavy on the gas for it to snick up really nice into the gear. So that's already a really, really nice feature so far on this bike. Really enjoying that. Here at highway speeds, the CB1000R is very composed. That's the word I would use for it. I think there's a little bit of buzziness through the bars. It is an inline 4, so I do find that it kind of sits there and buzzes a little bit, but it's kind of what I've expected from this bike, so I'm not like, you know, super you know, disappointed by that. I think it's kind of doing what it's supposed to do. It's doing the inline 4 thing. So far, so good. It's a nice place to sit. I like it. I think the highway manners are really nice. We're now going to get it into a little bit of a suspension check. See how this Showa big piston independent function setup works. I've used this I swear I've tested like quite a few bikes that have this fork setup. It's really good, you know. It's not super top shelf stuff, but it's got the manual clickers and it does what it's supposed to do. With all of my gear on, I'm about 188 pounds or so, probably. I'm 165 pounds without my gear, so I add an extra 15 for gear. And I find it to be sprung very well for my weight. I have the immense privilege of being the size that basically all motorcycle manufacturers tune around. And so as we come up to this bumpier section here, which you won't be able to see because I got stabilization on the camera, but you can probably hear in my voice that we're going over some bumps. I'm really liking how this feels. This is very composed, handling it with a lot of poise, not a lot of rebound, not very stiff. I'd rate it like a 6 out of 10 in terms of stiffness. I don't find it that stiff. The rear feels very planted and stable. It's really quite nice. Climbing this hill here, keeping it in second gear because we got plenty of torque. We got a big old inline 4, 1000 cc. One thing I want to point out about the CB1000R is the fact that traction control is a little rudimentary. This bike doesn't have a 6-axis IMU or something a little bit more advanced. Let's go ahead and just pop the speed bump here. Okay, that's not too bad. And so traction control and wheelie control are actually linked together, which I think is kind of a bummer because I like the feeling of having a wheelie control that is adjustable and then also having the ability to dial in my traction control. Because when I'm on the street, I actually really enjoy having traction control just to have that extra layer of protection and safety. But I do want my wheelies to be a little bit more easy going and to not have so much intrusion on the wheelie game. So I'm going downhill here a little bit, but as we cross up over here, I'll show you guys that with this TC setting, the bike lets you wheelie, but it immediately chops the power. So, and it's really aggressive. You'll stay on the gas and it completely cuts the power on you. It's not a good feeling. It's actually really bad. So if you want to have fun and do some wheelies with this bike, you have to completely turn off traction control, which is kind of a bummer because, like I said, you kind of want TC on the bike. Entering some twistier sections here. A lot of poise on this bike. Really nice planted feel. Ooh, I'm liking this already. Front end is giving me a lot of feedback. Really nice. Power is just nice and juicy. Coast on here. Grab a gear down. Oh, a lot of confidence out of this motorcycle. It's reminding me a lot of the CB650R. No bad thing, just a little bit more power on tap. Not bad. Decreasing radius here, avoiding some of these tar snakes. Oh yeah, this is fun. A fun Honda? What? What is this? It's just so much more bare bones, you know? The last properly yeah baby! The last proper hyper naked bike I rode, I think was the Street Fighter V4S, to be honest. And that thing gives you such a different sensation when you're riding it. You know, like it's the most refined, extreme package you could ever imagine. This is so much more bare bones, but it still has that Honda fit and finish that you'd come to expect. So it's a nice bike. Like, this feels really nice, but I think it's lacking that like next generation, next level of you know, hyper naked that we've come to expect nowadays. You know, the category's evolved so much. The Super Duke 1290, the Tuono V4 Factory, the Street Fighter V4S, those are hairy, insane motorcycles, to the point where we've forgotten that these bikes are simple and honest and genuinely a joy to ride. But they're old school, you know, like this is using a 2008 engine that's been slightly detuned and changed a little bit, but overall it's the same 2008 engine from the CB1000R. And it's actually really cool because they added a ride-by-wire system to it and put the new features on it. But you know, I don't know why Honda gets to kind of slip under the radar when we goof off on Suzuki doing the same thing, you know, where I was like, oh, freaking Suzuki using their K5 engine, ha ha ha. But here's Honda doing the same thing. They're using a mid-2000 spec liter bike engine in a brand new naked bike. You know, it's a little chintzy in my opinion, but it works. That's the thing about the CB1000R, is that it just frickin' works. The thing is dialed in, it works, it feels great. I'm so sad about this wheelie control though. Let me show you guys again. We've got the TC set to minimum. If I go ahead and pop a wheelie, so I'll show you guys again with this wheelie control. I'll try a little second gear clutch up here, and you'll see how much further I kind of dip back or forward in the seat because of that power being cut. So you'll see here, we'll just float a second gear. Yeah, there it is. You keep on the gas, nothing happens, and you just fall forward on the bike. It's really not very fun. So what I'm gonna do actually is I'm gonna go ahead and turn that off, because I'm tired of not being able to do even my little wheelies that I like to do. Riding the CB1000R through a set of twisties here, I find the throttle response to be a little snatchy, I'm not gonna lie. I've actually put it back into standard mode to see if that helps it a little bit, and on-off throttle does seem a little bit better now. It's still a little bit snatchy for my liking, and you know, it's funny, this bike has a ton of adjustability and you can change the quick shifter settings, but you can't change the throttle mapping at all. You kind of just stuck with what you're stuck with, which is not the best thing in the world. I really would have preferred a motorcycle that gave me the ability to really adjust the throttle mapping there a little bit. Would have been nice, but I gotta say, side to side, you know, it's not as razor sharp as a Ducati Street Fighter V4S. It also costs less than half the price of that motorcycle, but you kind of end up flowing with this bike, you know. It's not razor sharp at the front end. You don't feel like you're gonna, you know, bomb into corners with it and, you know, rail the brakes and really feel that front end dive and, you know, feel super confident and precise. But it is a street bike, and that's what the CBs are designed to be, you know. They were city bikes, right? And this thing can trace its lineage back to the CB750, and I gotta say, it feels like a street bike, and that's not a bad thing. It's a very potent, very capable, and confidence-inspiring street bike, and I think in a vacuum, it exists really nicely in the pantheon of naked bikes. But the problem is, it's not in a vacuum, is it? We have to evaluate this motorcycle with its competition, and an MT10 is just way more interesting to ride, you know, and it costs about the same amount of money. Granted, I wish the MT10 looked like this bike, you know, sans the all-black thing, but this is a very handsome motorcycle that I think anybody could be into, you know. This is the type of bike that anybody could really own and ride and enjoy. I think the handlebars are well-sized as well. I think Honda's done a great thing, because the old 919s and those sort of things, they had a very tiny little handlebar, and I do, you know, I wish this had a little bit wider handlebar, maybe just by like, you know, 5 or 10 millimeters, but I like the way it's kind of swept back a little bit towards me. It's not just like a big flat bar like the Street Fighter V4S. It's definitely a more comfortable ride, you know. And I really keep my wits about me today on this road. You got people walking, you got construction, gravel. It's another day in the life, folks. The CB, the city bike's all for it, though. Whew, all right. Tricky little kickstand there on the CB1000R. Well guys, I've spent a big majority today riding this bike around,
And I'm left a little torn, I'm not gonna lie. I wanna really love this motorcycle. It makes the right sounds, it handles the right way, but I think the category is just too damn competitive nowadays. There's a couple things I didn't love about this bike. I think the throttle is a little snatchy. The feeling of the throttle here, actually, the way it's sprung with the fly-by-wire and the snatchiness reminds me a lot of the Tuono V4 Factory, which I actually didn't prefer. So I don't like that. I find the motorcycle to be a little bit heavy. It does handle very beautifully. It flows very well. It is not a hyper naked motorcycle. It's just a naked motorcycle that happens to have a 1000cc engine. I think this thing most closely resembles the Suzuki GSX S1000. I don't think it has much in common with the MT10 at all, because the MT10 is a ripper of a motorcycle. It's got a superbike frame, a superbike engine, and a 6-axis IMU. I mean, it's a proper missile. This thing is, well, it's really sedate, you know? It's a Honda, it's a CB bike, it's kind of designed to be a cafe bike. I think they call it the Neo Cafe Concepts Retro, something like that, and it ends up feeling exactly like that. This, to me, is more of a coffee house bike, a cafe bike, something that looks really pretty. I mean, this blacked out look, this single headlight, it's a very unique, beautiful, sculpted shape on this motorcycle, and I think if that's what you're looking for, it's a great buy. But if you're in the market for a real deal naked bike, I might skip this one if it were me, personally. Hope you guys enjoyed today's review. Thank you so much to the fan of the channel for providing this motorcycle. And thanks again to AG1 for sponsoring today's video. Be sure to check them out in the link in the description down below. And we'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later. Brother, only one thing to say to you today. While we sit here, taking a knee, it's a special moment, me and you hanging out here. Do it. I don't even got to tell you what to do. You already know what to do. You've made it to the end of the video. You got the time. I know you're sitting there. You want to make sure that you can keep watching yourself some Yammy Noob. So what you want to do, just click that video right over here. Do it.